Ready to go here. So today we have a guest that I'll introduce in a minute. Let him tell you a little bit about his background. I'll stay true to our normal format. We'll record this and put it up so you can watch it afterwards. We're going to go through today, as usual, talking a little bit about a couple of case studies or questions that have come in over the prior week, a strategy that we're going to go into using the tool for a specific strategy, namely looking at and incorporating desktop sharing into your presentations and using that as part of the platform. We have Kent Kopen, who's going to share with us a case study and talk a little bit about how he's using BSA in his market. And as part of the series now, we've got someone scheduled for the next 4 weeks. And each week I'm going to try to spend 10-15 minutes with one of our users, maybe sharing a case study that they have done recently. And again, talk a little bit more about how they're practically using the tool in their market to differentiate themselves overall. So as always, we'll start off with what are we doing? Hey, this is all about mindset meeting skill set. It's both a practical way to use a tool to enhance your practice, but a lot of this, as you spend time with us, you'll realize is a lot about the mindset of thinking about how you position yourself in the market. How do you set the table with a prospect or a suspect or a client? How do you utilize your skills as both helping someone to borrow smart, which as we know is a small initial transaction cost. We call borrowing the entry strategy and repaying the exit strategy. There's a huge opportunity when you start to incorporate both.
Todd,
yeah.
I'm sorry, but people are saying they're not hearing you. Several people said no sound yet. Hello?
No,
someone's called in.
No sound yet.
Yeah, if they're on the call part, they're hearing you, but if they're on it sounds like maybe on the internet audio, it's not coming through.
Yeah, that was what we were going to test before I could get in.
Yeah.
Can you share the number with everybody in the chat box and ask if they could just call in? I'm afraid that when we switched over to the audio teleconference for Kent, that it actually takes the sound away from the internet, which I didn't realize was going to happen. So again, we are recording this. If you're not hearing it, you will be hearing it on the recording. And I apologize. We had to do a last-minute little shuffle there.
Okay, I chatted to them, and we'll just wait for them to call in.
Okay, sounds great. But everyone's hearing it on the audio portion for the dial-in, right?
Anybody here with us?
Well, no, they should be probably muted, but you're hearing it. You're on the dial-in, correct?
That's right.
All right, so you're able to hear me, so then everyone else should as well. Okay, so thanks for that. So Borrow Smart, again, it's your entry strategy. It's you're paying some closing costs, you're making a long-term commitment. People will focus a tremendous amount of energy on $500 in closing costs or borrowing an extra $1,000 or $2,000 at closing, or how they're going to pay those closing costs, not thinking about the fact that how they repay could have an impact of hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of their loan. So we're going to be teaching you how to use both the way you help people to borrow smart and the way you help them to repay smart to really differentiate yourself and really create that unfair advantage. We've been talking about the unfair advantage for over 15 years. It was something we used to discuss at my mortgage company back in the late 90s. How do we constantly keep an unfair advantage as sort of the tip of the spear for how we really grow our practice in the local market? So, and you're going to have to mute or whoever's on the thing because it's making a lot of noise there.
How do you mute?
Or whoever's, there we go. Sorry. We're going to eventually get this figured out, guys. You make a lot of money, licensing, CE, all this energy and effort you spend in getting those leads. And again, our focus here is how do we really capitalize on maximizing the value, the time, the money, and the energy that you spent. What happens in this gap here? We do it with answering these 3 questions. And our tool is designed to be fast, easy, and accurate, delivers clarity and confidence. It leads to quick action. If you've been on these calls, I've gone through this stuff in a great deal of detail in the past. So let's go through. There aren't any real major updates that we're going to be talking about on this particular call. Most of the updates have been behind the scenes. We are working on several new calculators that will be added into the system, and some other features that we're going to be really excited to talk about. Some LOS integration that we're doing over the next 2 months. We've outlined nine lender origination systems, or loan origination systems, that we're going to be tying into, and some other partnerships that are going to really help you to maximize the value of the tool. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off here today with our guest speaker, Kent Kopen, and before I go into my 2 case studies, we'll take a look at his particular case study that he's chosen to share today. But before we do that, why don't we just get a quick background check on Kent? And Kent, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background, how many years you've been in the mortgage business, and what's your primary focus as a loan originator today?
I'd be happy to, Todd, and it's a privilege to be on this call. Thank you. More importantly, I just thank you for the tools. They're really an unfair advantage, and I'll try to share a little enthusiasm about that. I got into the mortgage industry in '93, and so that's quite a few years. What is that, 18, 19 years now? And over that span of time, I've been a retail originator, worked at a large wholesaler, ran the Western U.S. with about 21 account executives reporting to me, started a large direct mail mortgage company with a Wall Street backer, and, just have a long story like probably everybody who's been in this field for a long time does. In the 2006-2007 time frame, as the market was starting to contract, I opened a small net branch and focused exclusively on financial planners. And I did that, and as I was doing that, and I was using a lot of the Kendall Todd tools, specifically I was using a very nice reverse mortgage deck, and I was hosting big luncheons, spending about $10,000 a month of my own money doing reverse mortgages. Did a lot of jumbo reverse mortgages in and around the Newport Beach, California area, and those were very lucrative, but that market disappeared too. So I took a 2-year hiatus thinking the grass would be greener on the other side, and I jumped the balance sheet and went over to the asset management side, specifically with Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley. And, that's a separate story that's not germane here, but I've come back to our space, and my business model is still to call on financial advisors. And I'm sure that the 2 years I spent over there has given me, if nothing else, a little better vocabulary to penetrate that. But what I'd like to share a little bit are ideas and tools that you've created that I'm using with great success. It's very early on as I start to build out this practice. But I will be happy, Todd, as we go through the next few minutes, just to sort of showcase how I'm using it and maybe share, a phrase or two that might be helpful to others.
That'd be great, Ken. Now tell me, I'm curious, you crossed the balance sheet, you went into Merrill Lynch for a little while thinking that you'd incorporate or maybe even become a financial advisor, and then you came back into the mortgage business. I know a lot of people
1865.
Angie, can you look at muting all of the phone calls for us, please?
Yeah, I have to put it in twice.
Can you use the star, whatever it is, star? Or will that?
I will. Kent, you may have to unmute yourself once I mute everybody.
I'd be happy to. Just tell me how.
Okay, I'll have to figure it out. Hang on a second.
But you left, you went over to Merrill Lynch, and then you came back. Tell me a little bit about that experience and what brought you back to the mortgage business full time.
Well, the experience was quite humbling. Frankly, it's I really applied myself. But the conclusion I came to, and it's very reminiscent of Malcolm Gladwell's book where he says it takes 10,000 hours to achieve mastery, is that like mortgage lending, these fields are not picked up quickly. And I think the challenge, especially in this current, market, people are very skittish about investing in equities, and they're just not eager to do it, period. But they're also not eager to do it with somebody who's only been in the field for a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And you can put all the energy you want into saying I've been in the financial services space for 18 years, et cetera. But there is money moving to the sidelines, staying out of the stock market, etc. And it became obvious to me that what I thought was maybe a refuge was no easier, and I had acquired a specific skill set having been in our space so long, and that I could actually probably add more value to the equation on this side because there are so few competent liability advisors.
That's cool. That's cool. But you learned something about that, though. You learned something about working with financial advisors, and how is that helping you now as you think about positioning yourself as an LO?
It's helping a lot in this regard. The financial advisors are so hamstrung from a regulatory basis, and maybe more specifically from their own internal compliance department. And I remember when I was interviewing at Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley, and I showed them some of the stuff that I had created, some of it Kendall Todd, stuff. And every time they said the same thing. They said, wow, that's really amazing. That's really neat. That's really innovative. FINRA probably won't let you use most of it, and whatever they will let you use, we won't let you use. And so your financial advisor partners really have their hands tied behind their back in terms of marketing, and it really gives us a chance to sort of show some things and say some things that they're not allowed to say, but that they know are in the client's best interest.
That's cool. So they can't say it, but they can partner with you so that you can say it for them, and that helps to amplify whatever they're trying to accomplish.
It's true, and here's probably I've had a couple of other big ahas working with them. And here's the first one. Almost all financial advisors, in fact, I don't know of any that are working in shops that only sell their own products. Long ago, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, etc., moved to platforms where they look for best in class, whatever the asset was. So they're not selling a Merrill Lynch mutual fund. They're looking at Morningstar, and they're selling whoever's mutual funds have been performing best recently. And so my big aha was, while most of the bigger wirehouses, whether it's Merrill or Morgan or UBS or Wells, their lending side is by no means best in class, not in terms of turnaround speed, rate, or fees. And so I just simply make the argument, if you're looking at the world through fiduciary lenses, maybe you have an obligation to go to the best-in-class mortgage solution. After all, how can you justify putting in your client in a loan at 4.25 with $3,600 in fees if you can get them 3 7/8 with no fees?
Mm-hmm.
And that really resonates with them. The other sort of thing I'd share to the audience that's really helpful is this. If a financial advisor does a loan in-house and everything goes well, most of them are clearing through a large mortgage banker in the southeastern U.S. I won't name names, but Goldman, Merrill, and Morgan Stanley, all three clear through the same place. And so it looks like this. If everything goes perfect, it's going to take 90 to 120 days. Front page story, yesterday's Wall Street Journal talking about that. And yet their clients will drive home and hear on the radio mortgage rates that are considerably lower than the advisor could get them. Now that's if everything goes perfect. If anything goes wrong, the advisor tells me, look, I've got $2 million under management, a process that's 7 states away that I can't control and don't understand goes south, but the client thinks that's us doing that loan. I risk losing a $2 million relationship. So I would much rather give it to somebody I could promote as best in class, not connected with our firm. And if everything goes south, I just say, wow, that's a bummer. I've used him. We've had great luck for a long time, but if you didn't have a good experience, I'll have to, re-examine that relationship. So it sort of gives them that out if it doesn't go well.
And as you started going back out and calling on these financial advisors, and that's something that we've been fans of for a long time, what do you find is the most important first step for a loan officer to consider when they're going out and talking to this advisor who is in a position of referring it into an in-house company where, like you said, they could lose a lot more? There's a lot more downside risk than there is upside risk if the transaction goes well then that was sort of expected. If it goes poorly, then it reflects on what might be a $10,000 to $20,000 a year income stream for them. So there's trust there, but then they've also got to trust you. What do you think is the first couple of things you really need to do to get that advisor to be open to working with you and referring their clients to you?
Unfairly or not, almost all advisors really look down on mortgage professionals. And that's in this market, maybe because in Southern California there are so many huge call center type mortgage places. Within 10 miles of where I'm sitting, you had Ditech, you have Greenlight, just a lot of big call centers. So the stereotype that they have is not a positive one. And I think it's not terribly hard for anybody who's a Kendall Todd, subscriber to just sort of read through the stuff that comes through in the back of our Borrow Smart analysis reports. And early on in the conversation with a new advisor, you just want to position yourself using some of the dialogue that we learned, through Borrow Smart. And they'll very quickly pick up on the fact that you're not the average loan officer.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's been sort of my big secret so far. Most wealth managers, I'm getting a lot of background noise. Are you?
Yeah. Angie, did you give everybody instructions for how to mute their individual phone? Make sure you post that, if you would, on the thing, just for how an individual can just mute their phone. Go ahead, Ken. Sorry.
Here's the big secret I found. Almost all financial advisors are fundamentally stock pickers. They like stock, they like investments, etc. But if you find people who are true wealth managers, maybe more the CFP, that type, they're making recommendations all day long to their clients, not just in terms of what investments they should have, but what insurance they should have. They're looking at the whole picture. I remember something, Todd, in one of your slides long ago, and it has always stuck with me, and I'm using it with great effect, and it's this. Most borrowers, most financial advisor clients feel like there's no money in the present. Everything they're making is being spent either on their lifestyle, their kids' school, whatever. And so we can come in and we can say, look, Mr. Advisor, you're advising your clients to do 5 or 6 things. Things around their living trust, their estate planning, what investments they should have, what insurance they should have, etc. And most of your clients are not taking all of your advice. And as a wealth manager, that every piece that they don't lock down can eventually blow up on them. And so I come in, and what I do is I say, look, most of your clients aren't doing everything they should do. They haven't updated their living trust. And so if they pass away, maybe all their assets go to their ex-wife, because that's still who's on it. They don't have enough life insurance. They haven't looked at long-term care insurance. They have no disability insurance, etc. But if they properly manage their liabilities, it can mean tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. Now, if the client used even some of those savings, some of that tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars, they could plug almost every hole that sits in the wealth management plan, which makes the advisor look like a hero, and the advisor isn't telling somebody you need to do A, B, and C, and when the client says, I can't afford it, the advisor's not sitting there saying, well, stop going out to eat and don't go to the theater. You got to get these things done. We come in and provide some cash flow, which can be much better used in the client's long-term plan.
So it sounds like a big part of your story is we used to say that we're going to help you solve old problems with new ideas, which is that, if you have a problem funding college or saving for retirement or whatever, these are the old problems that every advisor faces. And what we're doing from the liability side of the balance sheet is giving them new ways to solve these old problems, whether it be consolidating debt or refinancing or buying a smaller house, trading down, or whatever the case may be. You're really positioning yourself as an ally to that advisor to help them in their business. And I know you just started back down this track, this year, working more and more with advisors. But what percent of your business right now is coming from, say, financial advisors versus realtors versus, say, existing client referrals?
I'd say it's half-half. I've really begun in earnest because I've got all the systems set up. I've really begun to approach the advisor community. I'll give you an example. I met with 3 different advisors already this week. The advisor I met with Monday gave me a referral Monday afternoon, and that loan is locked. I met with an advisor yesterday and the day before. The one I met with Tuesday said, "This sounds great. We can definitely open up our book to you. Let's start with my loan." The advisor I met yesterday said, "Everything you said makes sense, and even if you were equal in rate, I just assume go with you as in-house." So, and what I led with, and Todd, if you want to open up that case study that I did,
yeah.
Jane Campbell.
Hey,
and this thing is so powerful, and I'll tell you how I used it in particular, sort of the nuance. If you'll go to page 2.
All right, so just for everybody, what Kent's done is he's created sort of a archetypal presentation that he can take out there to the advisors and show them a little bit about what he does.
Hey, Kent, hang on just a second. Can you need to hit *5, and then can't you hit *6 to unmute yourself?
Angie, I can't do that. So I need you just to tell everyone via the email what they can do to mute themselves. So if everyone would please mute their phone.
Okay. Everybody, please hit *6 to mute yourself to get rid of the background noise. Thank you.
All right. Great. All right. So this is the archetypal presentation that you've created. You call it a Dick and Jane sample. And when you're setting up a meeting to go in and meet with that advisor for the first time, is this something that you're taking in to kind of show them what you can do for their clients?
It's even more fun than that, Todd. You'll go to page 2.
Okay.
What I do is I put this PDF on my iPad.
All right.
Then I sit with them at a coffee shop or at lunch. And then what I do is you know how you can enlarge things on your iPad so the text gets really big? Exactly. I aim my iPad at them. I enlarge this objective summary note. And basically, people can read it there, but I'll just tell you, it's the classic example of a client calls the advisor and says, "The stock market scares us to death. We're thinking of just taking our money and paying off the house." So I just say to the advisor, "Look, here's a long report. I want to demonstrate to you that I'm not the normal loan officer, but more importantly, I want to demonstrate I can do things you never thought a loan officer could." And so they sit there with my iPad and they read this on page 2 and they're like, "Okay, that makes sense." Then I say, "Look, I'm going to jump to 2 other places quickly, and then we'll talk about this in as much or little detail as you like. The next thing we're going to do is look at the bottom of page 5.
Cool. So you go through and you've got your little report on your iPad, which I agree looks really, really cool when you've got it there as a report. You can actually open it as a PDF, so you're just flipping through the PDF pages. So keep that in mind. Anyone, when you create a report, just simply send that PDF to yourself. You can open it, or better yet, you can save it into your iBooks or into your PDF reader, and then you click on it as an icon right on your screen. That's going to pull it up, and you can actually go through and flip through it. And Kent's saying he starts with the objective summary, and then goes right over here to page 5.
Bottom of page
and
5.
Page 5 is your monthly payment impact.
Yep, and I'll wait till my screen refreshes. And if you can scroll, so right there. So I say, look, here's the deal. If your client does what they're doing now, that's column 1, that's current. And I know on previous calls, Todd, you coached us to only offer 2 alternatives. But in this case, it's sort of a sample, so I've got 4, what they're doing now, and then the other ones I want to talk to. So I say, okay, the next column is if they pay off the home, they're going to save $18.42 on an after-tax basis. The advisor's eyes always twinkle because most people, are doing nominal, not real. They're just saying what the actual number is, and they don't have the wherewithal to model after tax. So that sort of makes them smile. And I say, obviously, they're going to have a payment savings if they don't have a mortgage anymore. But it's not as big as maybe they would have thought because we've included the entire debt picture, all the other liabilities. And then I say if they just simply refinance the home loan, they're going to save $453 a month. And then if they refinance and consolidate on a strategic basis, or on a strategic basis, and then include those loans that have a higher EPR than our cost of money, then that's even more interesting. And then the client can save $1,361 a month, which from a cash flow point of view, does this make sense monthly, is approaching having no mortgage at all. And then I say, but here's the real question. As an advisor, you tell the client, oh, don't take your money out here and pay off your home. That's not in your best interest. The client sitting across the table thinking, well, that's a self-serving comment. You're just trying to protect, your account. And the advisor has no way to say, no, I'm not being selfish. It's really what's in your best interest. And I said, so now please go to the bottom of page 6.
So you're doing a nice job here of setting the table and saying, these are the kinds of questions your clients are thinking about. They're thinking about paying off the mortgage or refinancing, and now you're really getting into what gets the advisor excited, which is the financial impact of which of these decisions is going to make the most sense for this client over time. And you picked a 10-year time frame, I see.
I did, and then if anybody wants to know the property appreciation rate of 2.1, what I look the advisor in the eye is, and I say, look, you tell me the property appreciation. You tell me how much money, what rate you can give the client. I use 2.1 because that actually is -3 this year, -2 next year, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you blend that all together, it's a compound rate of about 2%. And I said, most advisors tell me on an after-tax basis they can do better than 6. They have all these charts going back to 1929 and say they can do much better, but let's conservatively use 6. And I said, okay, so here's where the rubber meets the road. If they do what they're doing, there's no wealth impact. They're already doing what they're doing. But here's the big aha. If you pay off the home, Mr. and Mrs. Client, it actually hurt your wealth over 10 years by $51,000. If you refinance and stay the course, don't take all the money away from the advisor. Yes, we've had a scary couple of years, but you have to look at investing through long-term eyes. You have $93,000 more in wealth, and if you want to get strategic about the entire borrowing picture, you have $115,000 more in wealth. And I say at the end of the day, either the bank is going to keep that $115,000 in profit, or you can use that and plug every hole in your current wealth management plan. You can go get some long-term care insurance. You can get the right amount of term life insurance. You can give your advisor some of that money so that he can do a better job of making sure you can retire somewhat comfortably, and you can even keep some of that savings for lifestyle today. And so it's a complete win for you. The only question is, do you want the bank to benefit, or would you like to benefit? And you trust your advisor, let him do his magic, and here's where you're going to find some of the money to let him do his thing.
So I love that tie back, because I mean, you're talking about, over 10 years saving $115,833. And one of the things that we often do, it's a real simple math example, but I'll ask the advisor, I want you to do me a favor. Take that $115,833, which is the real savings, and divide it by 120 months. That's an average savings of $965.27 per month for the next 10 years. So you remember that long-term care that we talked about that you needed, or remember that disability insurance? That disability insurance we needed was going to be $125 a month. So let's say we go ahead and get that. You've still got $840 a month in savings. Now, we also know that you're underinsured and you need another $350 a month to buy the additional term coverage you need to insure your estate. So let's say we go ahead and take care of that term at $350 a month. Now we're down to $500. So you can actually work with the advisor to take the savings target and say, this is what we're going to save you over 10 years. It's guaranteed. There's very little risk when you're saving money. And then you go through and start plugging those holes and say, now this $490 that's left over, that could go right into that college fund and help to accelerate the growth of that savings for the future college fund that you've been talking about wanting to save more money for. Now you're helping the advisor to tie what you're doing as a liability advisor back into what they're trying to accomplish for their clients. And guys, these guys are sharp. You do one or two of these for them, and they will use you again and again and again and again. And the return on that investment is very, very high. As Kent was saying, he's had a couple appointments already this week that have yielded locked loans and referrals, and that's in a week. I don't know about you, but when I'm going out calling on a real estate agent, it can take weeks and even months before that first referral actually comes in. And that's not true. I've had several people tell me that they went out and called on advisors, and they were shocked at how quickly they got their first referral and their first deal in compared to going out and calling on some of their other, traditional referral sources. I love realtors. I just think you got to have multiple streams of revenue, multiple streams of referral partners to do this job really, really well. So, Ken, at that point, are they pretty well committed and interested?
Oh, at that point, they're really excited. And then what I do is, can you scroll or can you page down so that you can get the graph?
Yeah, which one?
The one that keep going.
All right.
The XY-axis graph.
Okay.
There we go. So then when we're sitting there, I just flip my finger on the iPad and get to these. Now, go a couple more if you would, Todd. Because I don't send it. I just let them look at it. It's eye candy. Then I go a couple more. Next slide. They love this slide because it looks like stuff in their literature. Next slide. Next slide. One more. That one. And so I leave this one because it's really colorful, and I say, look, if your client is an accountant or an engineer, we can give them all the AM tables they want. Most people are not going to read this whole report, but I think it looks neat. That's what I say to the advisor. And they sit there looking at the iPad like, this stuff's beautiful. So by that point in the conversation, any thought that you're a tattooed, body-pierced, call center employee is totally gone. And then sort of the coup de grace is, Todd, can you open the other PDF I sent you?
Sure.
And here's where, this is where you had them at hello, and, at this point you just pull out the Ferrari. If you could shrink that down. Then what I do is I open up my cell phone, and I show them the phone app, and I said, this is all tied together. And here's the way you can refer me to somebody. Here's the way you can just simply know what are rates doing, or how much home can this person afford if they refinance, what's the savings. And I said, I'll be happy to send you this phone app for free. And by that point, you're done. They're just blown away.
So you're giving them a really simple way to say, this is what I can do for you. And, once I leave, I'm not going to leave you with anything but an app here that you can put on your phone. And once you have it on your phone, you can refer me very easily with a simple click of a button here. Click the refer me button, and you're going to be able to reach out to that client and follow up and help them in some way.
And then here's the last thing I do. I leave my iPad on, facing them on that pretty graphic that you were on a minute ago. And then I spend the next 15, 20 minutes, as long as they'll go, talking about them and their practice. And they'll talk, they'll scroll back and forth on my iPad, they'll talk. And I just let them talk the meeting to a conclusion.
Oh, that's beautiful, Ken. So you're spending the first 15, 20, 30 minutes, you're really identifying what you can do and what's different. You leave the toy there for them to play around with so that as they're sharing with you their philosophy, their business, they're getting to know you better. They're also getting a chance to sit here and flip around and see what you can do for their client. So by the time they stop talking, you got to figure that they're probably pretty excited about having you as a resource.
They are. And, I'll just tell you, yesterday was with a real sharp Merrill Lynch advisor, and he said, look, I'm just going to send you my client, and then he paid for lunch. So it doesn't get any better than that.
That's fantastic. Well, what I'll do is I'll put when we post this up on the site, I'll post a copy of this PDF just so people can look down and take a look at how you've created an example, and they can think about how they might want to build their own. I've had a couple of emails with people asking, what would a good example look like? And, this is a little bit higher end. Kent's in California, so he's got, a client here with a 380 mortgage and an auto and, 2 autos and some credit cards. So 517 isn't a ton of borrowing. But you can go through and customize this. Maybe say, for me, my typical mortgage is $215,000. So would my advisors, and they probably have an auto and a credit card, or maybe they just have a mortgage. You can go through and build your own case study and your own story to be able to sit down with that advisor and talk to them about the financial, impact of and the value again of your advice. So, hey, man, I really appreciate you sharing these thoughts. I know that you stimulate some great ideas, and I was going to talk about the desktop sharing today, but you bringing up the mobile app is another strategy that we're going to spend a lot more time with in the weeks ahead. So let me just go cover that real quick so that everyone knows where that's at and how Kent did that. On your menu bar, toolbar here on the left, you have mobile. And if you click that mobile icon here, you'll get a preview of what your mobile app looks like. It'll have your picture, your logo. It'll have all your personal information, your social marketing links, media, email, website, even a QR code down here that an advisor can scan. Now, this is a sample, and if I go through and I say that doesn't look right, or my website's not there, all of that is driven from your profile. So I can come over here to my profile, and I say my website should say www.kendallpod.com. And so I'm editing my profile, and I save that. You can go over now to the mobile site, and notice what you're seeing is a live preview of your actual mobile website that would be on the phone of the advisor or the realtor or the partner that you're working with. Now, how do you get that person to get that on their app? There's a couple of ways you can do it. One, you'll have a QR code on your actual phone app, and they can scan that QR code, and that will take them right to your page to set the phone up. Kent shared an example of something that he created, which is just basically a little instruction guide telling them how to set this up on their iPhone or their Android, and that's something we have available for anyone that wants to use it. Or you can invite someone. So you can click the Invite New User button, and all of those instructions and information are right here. All you have to do is copy this. So I would just copy the Dear Raymond to right here and hit Control-C. So I've copied the invitation. I would go into my email browser, say I want to send a new email, and that's going to open up a new email, and I just hit Control-V and paste. And you'll notice what I just did. I could say, Dear Kent, I love my smartphone to you after speaking, blah, 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 and here's the information. This tells them how to set it up. And all I would do is down here, I can delete your signature, and I'm just going to use the existing signature I have. And what you've done now is you've given that person what they need to go in here and set up their phone and set up your mobile app. Again, I've had people, we'll talk more about this in a future session. I'll share with you some ideas. I've had folks going into real estate offices showing the app and then signing up and setting up 10, 20 realtors at one time with their phone app so that they can access rates and refer them on an ongoing basis. So this is a wonderful tool to incorporate into your conversation with an advisor, a new referral partner, whatever it is that you may want to do. So I'm going to let Kent hang out here, and Angie, I'll let you see if there are any questions. If you could, Angie, just paste the questions that come up into the Skype chat window. That way I'll see it on my other screen as I'm continuing to talk. And I'm going to go through and share with you a couple of case studies or a couple of thoughts that came in this past week while I was away that might be helpful for you. And I'm just going to build these as new client plans and point out a couple of key features in the software as we go through these case studies, and we'll kind of build them together on the fly. So I click the Create New Client Plan button, and what I wanted to show is one of our plan types is called a second home purchase. And a second home purchase works like any other purchase, but what I want to point out is that it actually, by doing a second home purchase, it keeps your current mortgage and adds the new mortgage to it. So it's a way to look at the aggregate of your real estate as a whole and all of your borrowing as a whole. So let's just say that somebody's going to buy a $200,000 second home purchase. And I can come in here and put in the details. And again, it's just going to be the same as what I'd see if I was buying any other house. What's the value of my existing house? Well, I have a $500,000 home right now. How much do you have available to purchase this house? Well, I have $50,000 available to purchase this house. The purchase price of the house we've already said was $200,000. I'd like to put down 20%, and it's saying that's $40,000. So I'll need to borrow $160,000. So you just can follow along, answer the questions. I'll call this second home sample. And I'm going to put in client name, their income. We'll say it's $150,000. That's their gross income. We'll say in a 30% state and federal tax bracket. And that's really all I need to put in for this, except down here, I want to put in the liabilities that they have today. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in add liability. I'm going to put in mortgage. So this is a second home. So in this situation, right, they have a new house. And we said that's worth $500,000 as primary residence. I'm just going to make some stuff up here just so you can get a feel for this. Let's just say that the original loan amount on this house was $300,000, and that they've had this financed since 2001. Their interest rate is 5.5, and their current balance is $264. All right, we'll just kind of leave this at that. But so what we're doing is we're setting up and saying they have this current mortgage in this current house here, but they're not going to pay it off, right? Because they already have a mortgage for this house. What they're doing now is buying a second home. So the objectives are see how much it would cost us to buy a second home. Also would consider renting house out during summer. Feel like we could generate, say, $1,000 a week for 12 weeks of the summer. So this is kind of what you're looking at here. So it's a second house. They're buying a new house. Now, I could have just done this as a purchase, and it would have just looked at this purchase as one property. But when I do it as a second home purchase, it's saying you really have two properties. You've got the one you have today, and you're going to have a new property that you're buying. So let's go to the Borrow tab and take a look, and I'll show you how that looks a little bit different. So I'm just going to go ahead with one alternative. So right now, what do I have? I have a mortgage with the bank of $264 at 5.5, paying $3.85 after tax, $1,707 a month is my payment. I can see my tax reduction, and I still have 271 payments to go. I am not going to pay that off. On the new mortgage, I'm looking at a 30-year fixed. That's what I'd like. So that's my title. My property value is $200,000, and my contract price is $200,000. Now, I did have this update that I wanted to share with you, so I'll do it now. If it's a purchase, we had folks coming in saying, gosh, you know, my client's buying a house for $200,000, but the house is worth right now, the appraisal came in at $240,000. So they wanted to show that the house they were buying was worth $240,000 in value, even though they were paying $200,000 for it. So we've actually now, on a purchase, we give you the ability to put in the property value and the contract price. And what that will do is it knows what to do. It'll still calculate the fees and the MI and all that off the contract price, but it'll use the value down here below for appreciation and things like that. So, you know, we'll just do that in this case. Let's just say that the house was $200,000, but the appraisal came in at $225,000. The software will now adjust for that in all of the analysis. And let's say the client wants a 30-year fixed. We know it's 80% LTV. I borrow $160,000, and we'll just say they can do that today at 4%. All right. So what I've done simply here is I've got this existing mortgage and this new mortgage. So you notice because I'm not paying it off, I'm able to show the client your total borrowing now is going to be $424,000. The $160,000 you have now and the $264,000 that you're going to have on the new mortgage. You're borrowing at 4 here, you're at 5.5 here, so you're at a total of 4.934. Your after tax is 3.4. Your total payment is $26.75. That's your existing payment and your new payment. And I haven't done an MI and stuff like that. I could do that if I want to, but I just want to show you the basics here. And then I can see that I've got a new mortgage with 360 months to go, and I've got an old mortgage here that has 271 to go. So this is kind of cool because I can go through and look at the closing costs. I've got $50,000 cash available. If I don't buy the vacation house, I still have $50,000. If I do buy the vacation house, I only have $10,000 left over. So the first thing the software has done is it's showing the cash impact, so I can answer that question. The second thing is the cash flow impact. So what is it going to really cost this client to have this new second home? Well, it's a second home, so it's tax deductible up to $1 million in borrowing. So I expand the after-tax savings box, and notice that on an after-tax basis, this house is only going to cost them an extra $762 a month. So a lot of clients who are buying a second home want to know, gosh, can we afford this? Can I really do this? I'm able to say, yeah, look, if you can live with an extra $762 a month out of pocket, that's your net incremental monthly cost to own this home from a financing perspective. So I can answer those key questions. Do you have the cash to do this now? Yes. You're going to use $40,000 of your cash to do it now. Do you have the cash flow to do it now? That's up to you. Are you comfortable with an extra $762 a month out of pocket? Now remember, up here we have our LTV and CLTV. Their front ratio is 8, their back ratio is 21. So you can tell them, about 21% of your gross income is going out to service these two debts. Now the third question below is financially, is this a better situation for them, or is this something they should consider? Because they're thinking about buying this house and keeping it, and they've got their other house. So let's say their time frame is 30 years, their property appreciation rate is 2%. Okay, are they better off over 30 years financially with a second home? And the answer is no. It's going to cost them money. It's going to cost them $386,851 in wealth to own a second home over 30 years. Now that's a pretty cool conversation, because you know that a second home isn't free, right? You're spending an extra $762 a month for 30 years. All right, but maybe their time frame is only 20 years. I can slide this to 20 years and say, what is it going to really cost you to own a second home over 20 years? It's going to cost you about $137,872. That's the financial. Now the appreciation's 2%. So that's a positive, because remember, by doing a second home, we show the house values as cumulative. $745,664 is what their old house is going to be worth standalone, but when they buy the second house, we're looking at both the property values together. This is what makes it possible for you to compare and have a conversation with somebody about a second home and say, look, here's the reality. Here's what's going to happen over the next X years, if you were to do this. It's going to cost you $137,872. But what did you get for that? You got to enjoy that second home for 20 years. This just helps you to show the financial impact of the positive appreciation, which is a plus, positive tax benefits, that's a plus, minus the extra money that you're going to spend over that time period. Now, what's really cool is, remember, this client mentioned that they might consider renting. So what I want to do here is show you something that's really, really powerful. I go up here to this scenario we just created, and I click Duplicate 30-year fixed. With one click, everything has been duplicated. And I'm going to call this 30-year fixed with rental. All right? So everything's going to be the same. My closing costs, my net cash is the same. My payment's the same. My after-tax cost is the same. My wealth impact, is going to be the same over time. All right? Now, well, it should be. Why is it not? I probably forgot. Yep, I got to change this to 225, sorry. So now I've got the same value. All right, so my wealth impact is the same. Now, watch what I can do. I can come in here and click Add a New Payment, Rental Income, and they said they thought they could rent it for $1,000, right? They thought they could get $1,000 in rental income for 12 weeks of the year. So I could say I've got $1,000 of rental income on average is going to come in each month, and I'm going to assume that that's going to come in for all time. For as long as I own that property, I'm going to rent this thing out, and I click save. That's the only change, right? Now look what I just did. Here's not buying the rental property. Here's buying the rental property and funding that out of pocket. Okay, here's buying the second home and renting it for $1,000 a month for the summer for 12 weeks, creating $12,000 a year in rental income. Now you've got positive $273,161. So think about that as a story that you could tell. Look at the difference here in whether or not this might make sense for them or not. They might have said, you know, I can't really justify doing this and having this kind of a cost over 20 years to own this property. Now you're showing them quite a difference here, $273,000. I could convert that to repaying and say, look, you're 132 months away from being debt-free if you just keep your current house. If you buy a second home for the same monthly cash flow, you've got 296 payments. But if you rented this thing at $1,000 a month for 12 months over the course of a year, you could actually apply that toward that extra cash could go towards the mortgage. That's what happens with repaying. You've only got 168 months to be debt-free. You're still debt-free within a couple of years of when you plan to be debt-free, but the difference here is what? You've got two houses instead of one. And when that house is paid off in full, you can stop renting it. So I can tell this client that you're 168 months away from having no mortgages on either properties, paying $26.57 a month, and renting for $1,000 a month over the next 168 months. Because that extra rental income I can apply right towards the mortgage, and I'm going to have everything paid off in 168 months. Think about how cool a story that might be to share with a client that's on the fence. You could even go through and say, well, what if we can't rent it for that? And again, this is where you can play. I could come up here and say, what if they could only rent it for $500 a month, which would be 6 weeks out of the summer. If they could only rent for $500 a month, that's $6,000 a year in rental income. Notice that they're still green here. They're still $64,000 better off financially over 20 years, and they've got the second home to boot. And they could be debt-free in 213 months if they took that rental income that came in each month and applied it towards their mortgage. So look how, these are very, very sophisticated analysis that you can do, and you'll notice I'm talking about it, but it's only taking me 1 or 2 clicks to be able to modify and or illustrate these scenarios for a customer. If they want to look at just minimum payments, I click minimum. You only pay $1,703, you pay $2,675, or you pay $2,675 with $500 a month, and I can still look at the difference here. I can look at the financial impact. How many months does it take to be debt-free if you only pay the minimum? How many months are you going to be paying if you pay this? How many months are you going to be paying with this plus the extra $500? The difference here is I'm not comparing apples to oranges anymore. I'm spending $408, I'm spending $642, and I'm spending $530. We give you that, but I've had people say, well, why do you do that? I'm like, well, just think about it. If you were comparing these 3 scenarios for yourself and you just wanted to make the minimum payments, does that really tell you what you want to know? I'm comparing apples to oranges to giraffes, right? But when I do it a fixed payment, I'm assuming that if I can spend $26.75.57, if that's really an option, I can spend that on any of these 3 scenarios. And I'm going to now show the client, if you spend the same amount over the next 20 years in any of these scenarios, what's the financial impact? Here's my baseline. It's going to cost me $121, or I'm positive $64. But this is all about helping you to help clients make a decision, and in this case, possibly help someone decide, this makes sense, I can afford this, I want to do it, but I know I need to rent it for at least $500 a month. And again, I could play with it and sit here and say, let's just take $350 and click save. How we doing then? That's about break even. So you need to generate about $350 a month on this rental property for this to be a break even, for you to basically get the property for free from a financial standpoint. There may be other costs, right, that you have to consider, such as utilities and things like that. But that's really, whether you want to try to model that for the client or not, I'm not too worried about that at this point. This is just really a financial analysis tool that you can use. You know, I could say if I can get $500 a month, right, over here, that I've got an extra $65,000 over the next 20 years to offset my utilities and insurance and other expenses. But at least I'm able to give them some real numbers here. And if they say, well, we don't want to rent, I just want to know what it's going to cost me. And let's just say we're only going to keep the rental property for about the next 10 years while our kids are still young. Look at this. If I just go to 10 years, what's the real net cost of the rental property over 10 years for this client? $11,520. So think about that. And again, these are where you get the client involved. Take the $11,520 and divide it by 120 months. So the real net out of cost pocket for owning this house is $96 a month. Even though you're spending $762 a month more at a 2% property appreciation rate, if you believe that's realistic, because you're going to have a house that's not worth $610, but two houses worth $885, your real net out-of-pocket cost is about $96 a month over that 10-year period, plus obviously any other expenses you have. So when you get more and more comfortable with the software, and you'll learn this is really more about using the software to tell stories that help people to understand what may or may not work best for them. Now, I had one other case study, but because we're running out of time, what I'll probably do is I'll just do a separate little recording, and I'll post that up on the site for this other case study, which was a case study where a question came in on whether the client was better off going from a 30 to a 15 or going from a 30 to a new 30 and saving the difference. And I'll just post that up on the site as a separate case study, because I really did want to touch on my strategy idea of the day, and we're just getting more and more people having a great time using desktop sharing. So my challenge, or my marketing challenge for you this week, is the next time you have a suspect or a prospect that's calling you on the phone to talk to you about what you can do for them, don't just talk back. Let them see what you say. To do that, you simply need to share your desktop. We're using our software right now. We're using our BarSmart software to share desktop with people all over the country as you watch this video. So if your client is 2 miles away and they're on the phone and they're shopping you for rate, but they're calling in, it's really simple. All you have to ask them is, are you at a computer right now? And if they say yes, then you're going to send them a link that allows them to click and connect with you so that you can actually show them what it is that you're saying. So make sure you're aware of this tool and how this works. On the Present tab, you've got a button here called As a Live Demo. You've also got a link here that says click to send an email invitation to your desktop sharing session, for your desktop sharing session. So if I click this button, here's what happens. It opens my link inside my email program, and if Kent was out in California and I wanted to meet with him right now, I could put in his email address and send this link and say, please click this to join me online now. And I click the send button, all right, and he's just got an invitation that he can click on that link, and he's going to see my screen. Now, all you have to do is click the As a Live Demo button. When you click the As a Live Demo button, it's going to automatically log you into your desktop sharing account, and then you're going to be able to click Share My Screen, and your screen is going to be there, and when that person logs in, they're going to be seeing what you say on your screen. Now, you can practice this. I really encourage you to practice this with someone in your office, a family member. If your wife's at home or your husband's at home, say, hey, or at work, say, hey, do me a favor. I want to send you a link, and I want you to click on it. Now, we've actually put your link, and this is your link. No one else has the same link as you. This is tied to you. So your link is also right here, so you can just simply copy it, right, and paste it into any email that you want to send out. That means you can also put it in signatures and other things that you use. So you'll notice in my signature here, it says Meet, Browse, Email, Read. These are links to different things. My first link is Meet. And when I hover over that, that is my link to my meeting room. That's my personal link. Your personal link is right here. So all you have to do is put that in your email signature, and then you can just send a client an email and say, click the Meet button, and then I'll be waiting for you, and you keep talking to them. So think about this. Someone's on the phone. Hey, I'm interested in talking to you about refinancing a 30-year fixed. What's your rate today?
Hang on 1 second.
My first question is going to be, hey, are you at a computer right now? Now, there are a lot of reasons that that's a good response. If they say, what's your rate on a 30-year today? And I say, well, let's talk about rate, or it's so-and-so, then they could be off the phone in a second. I'm saying, let me ask you a question. Are you at a computer right now? Let me email you a link, and I'll share you my screen, and I can actually show you some of the interest rates we have today, as well as help you figure out which product might make the most sense. Let me just send you that. All right, got your email. Okay, it's gone to you. Just look for it, and when you see it come in, click on it, and you'll be able to see the screen right now, just like you were sitting in my office. Is that okay? And the person's like, sure, I can do that. They click the link while they're talking. So in the meantime, you keep talking to them. So tell me a little bit about your situation. And if they say, well, I'm just curious about your interest rates. Well, I want to show you that stuff in just a minute. Let me just ask you a couple of questions. Is this a purchase or a refinance you're looking at? Okay, great. And how many years have you been in the property? Okay, so you start asking questions that you would normally ask while they're waiting for that link. And then they click, and now they're seeing their screen. And typically what they'll say is, okay, I see it now. Great. Here's what I'd like to do if I could. I want to show you something here that we can go through in just a few minutes together that will really help you get a feel for what maybe we can do to help you out. I only need about 6 or 7 fields. Let's start with this one. You said this was a refinance, so I'm going to put in refinance. You said your name was Jennifer. Jennifer, what kind of gross income do you have right now? That'll help me looking at your tax bracket and what we have available. Okay, it's $90,000. Great. Now remember, they're seeing this on the screen just like you are as you have your conversation. And I've had people say, it took me a couple of times to get a rhythm for it, but now that I've done it, I realize that this is another ultimate unfair advantage for how I can reach out and quickly take someone who's just rate shopping and blow them away. Because they're going to watch here as I put this stuff in, and I'm going to say, now I'm going to talk to you about rates on the next page. Let me bring this over and we'll start looking at some ideas here. This is what you have today. And here's a couple ideas. Let me tweak these a little bit. Software's pretty smart, but I'm a little bit smarter. So one thing I know is I can get you a 3.875. And based on the loan amount, I'm already starting to see some pretty good savings here, right? So you can just be talking this person through and getting them really excited. And imagine they're on the phone with you and you're sharing desktop, and at the very end, you can say, I know that your husband may be interested in taking a look at this. Tell you what. Let me send you a copy of what we just did together. I'll send you that as an email, and you'll get that in a few minutes. Because I've got her email now because I sent her the invitation, right? So now I've got her email. I can send her that link for her to take a look at it with her husband, and we can set up a time to get back together and discuss it in more detail. So my marketing challenge for you this week is to start thinking about it and experimenting, if you haven't, how to use desktop sharing as part of what you do. I'll share with you some marketing strategies, how people are doing open house integration and supporting remote real estate offices and stuff like that in some future calls. But I want those that are on this call to really think about how they can use this as a strategic and competitive differentiator in what you're doing. So that's it. It's 3 o'clock, and I want to keep us to our 1 hour format. We're actually at 1 hour on the dot since we started the actual call. Hopefully you picked up some ideas from this. I really appreciate Kent sharing what he's learning and how he's using the tool in his local market. We've got someone next week as well that's going to come on that's going to share with you a strategy that they're using to basically blow away the client right now in the refinance, how they're basically converting almost every refinance lead they get into a sale by using the target payoff date. And Troy, I think, who will be on that call, was one of the folks that recommended we add that in as part of the borrow page. So he'll share with you how he's using that and his stuff. And again, thanks for coming, Kent. And if you had some questions and we didn't get to them, as always, I'll go through and look at the list after the call, and I'll email you directly or answer those in our next session. So thanks again, Kent. Thanks everybody else for attending today, and have a fantastic one.
Great call, Todd.
Thanks, buddy.